Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is the Let Go, Live and Trust God channel. My name is Onisa Henlin, and I pray that today you have come with an open heart to hear from God. Now today I'll be talking to you from the topic of obedience, right? Obedience. Now in today's world, today's society, this era, this is a very difficult topic, especially when we are told or when it's being said that you should do you, right? Now, doing you is a very big conflict to obedience, because doing you means that you obey nothing or no one else but yourself. But if you think about it, everywhere that you go, you are presented with rules, guidelines, requirements, or expectations. There are things that you have to follow. Now, following these rules or expectations is not to hurt you. It is to give order, to prevent chaos, so that you know what to do, how to operate, how to behave in certain areas or certain wherever you go, right? Now, if you think about it, I'm going to touch in 3 different places today. So say, for example, when you go to a country. Now, when you go to a country, or if you look at a country where you live, you have laws, you have expectations. As a citizen of that country, there are things that you're expected to do. For example, you know that you need an identification card. There are things that you're required to do to show that you're a citizen of that country. In order to drive, you need a driver's license. Those are laws that you have to go by in that country. You're required to go to school if you're a child until a particular age, and all of that. Things are required of you to do. When you go to school, it's the same thing. If you go to a school that wears uniform, you're required to wear the uniform in order to go to that school. The teachers, they have things that they're required to do. There's a line out of their expectations, their job requirements, all of that, what they're required to do to show, yes, they're a teacher, and to give the student what they need to learn and to improve and make them a better individual for society, right? At home, you have rules. Whether you're a parent or not, you have rules. Say, for example, you come to the house, you're coming from outside, you leave your shoes at the door. You don't walk in your house with the shoes. You have chores that you're required to do. As an adult, you have to pay the bills. There are certain things that you have to do. There are rules, there are guidelines, there are requirements, and that's fine. Because when you know exactly what you're required to do, then things go smoothly, right? It also sets you apart. So when you see a child in a particular uniform, you can identify and say, yes, that is a student of such and such school, right? When that child is in school, they're required to go to class at a particular time. The class lasts for an hour or so. So there are rules, guidelines, laws that we're required to follow. And it helps order. It prevents chaos, right? We know what to do, what we're expected to do, and things just move smoothly when you have rules, requirements, or expectations. Now, it's the same thing when it comes to being a child of God. Being a child of God, you still have rules, commandments, laws that you have to follow. Now, today, I'm coming from the text, 1 Samuel 15, verse 22 to 23, and it reads, "But Samuel replied, 'Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. Because you have rejected the Lord, he has rejected you as king.'" Now, a backstory to this. This is a story of Saul and Samuel when Saul was about to go into battle. But before he is to go into battle, he is required to offer up and sacrifice. However, he was told that Samuel is the one who should offer this sacrifice. However, maybe Saul was impatient, got anxious, whatever it is, he decided to do it, offer that sacrifice instead of waiting on Samuel to come and do it. Now, after he offers up this sacrifice to God, Samuel came in immediately afterwards and he was like, "What have you done?" Hence him saying these things to Samuel. He was the one who should have offered the sacrifice, but Saul did it instead. Now, this is when Samuel now said to him that, "Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as obedience? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fats of rams." So here he's telling Saul the importance of obeying the word of God. Yes, God requires sacrifices, but before the sacrifices, he prefers, and it's better for us if we obey him. That is of utmost importance. Now, yes, we could look at it and say, all right, then Saul, was disobedient and he did this and that. But if we look at ourselves, isn't that how we are at times? God gives us an instruction. He gives us a direction to move. But instead of heeding to his word and obeying him, what do? We do our own thing. Aren't we guilty of that? We are here doing us, you doing you, instead of following what God has called you to do. Samuel here was king over God's people. Saul here, was king over God's people. Now, here, God gave him these instructions to follow, right? But instead, he disobeyed. And with Saul disobeying, it cost him the kingdom. He lost his throne. God rejected Saul. You see how bad that ended up being for him? Because he didn't obey the instructions of God, he lost the throne to David. Right? Now, I know sometimes the instructions might be difficult. I'm not downplaying that. It can be difficult at times. However, we have to try our best. Pray and ask help, the Holy Spirit, to help us so that our flesh can be slain. Crucify ourselves and obey God. No matter how foolish or how hard you might think it is best that you obey the instruction that God has given you. Now, if we look at some instances in the Bible where God gave some particular person's instruction, we could say that it's easy for them. But the only reason why we can say it's easy for them is because we are reading their story after it has been done. Right? We know their entire story. But what if you were to walk it out with them in the same time frame that they're doing it, step-by-step journey with them in real time? Do you think it was easy for them to just get up and obey God? No, it wasn't. However, they did. Now we could look at, say, Noah, for example. When God had called Noah to build the ark, Noah could have thought it was crazy or even far-fetched, because then he was the one who built the first ever cruise ship. He had no example to look off or to follow. God gave him the specific instructions. And maybe if I was in that time, I would have maybe been messing with Noah to say, what are you doing? Why are you building that big thing for? However, regardless of all of that, Noah decided to obey God. And in obeying God, he ended up saving his entire family And it goes on and on. We could also look at Abraham. Abraham, God called him to move to a land that he didn't even know. Abraham had to leave his family, leave his home, and go to a strange land. Right? No, he did it. He obeyed what God said and he did it. He left his family, he left his home, and he went to a strange land. And on top of that, God asked Abraham, he promised him rather a son. No, God promising Abraham and Sarah a son. Think about this, the fact that Sarah was old. She was past the childbearing age. However, God made a promise to Abraham, and Abraham believed God. And God did come true for Abraham. Abraham received his miracle son, which is Isaac. Right? Now, in addition to Isaac, God asked Abraham to offer up Isaac as a sacrifice. Now imagine that, right? God promised you a son, a miracle son, that your wife is old and past the childbearing age, and God promised you that yes, your wife is gonna give you a son. He gives you that son, and then he asks you to give the son back to him. I'm sure that wasn't easy for him. However, Abraham obeyed God. He did. He obeyed God. And the result of the obedience is that he ended up having a whole generation from him that ended up being God's people, the Israelites. Now, you could even look into your own life and see instances where God have called you to do something. He gave an instruction for you to do something. And the result of you obeying him was even greater than you had anticipated. Talk about God, eh? Him instructing Abraham to move away because he's gonna make a covenant with him and make his descendants more than the stars in the sky and all of that. And Abraham could have sat and said, you know what, this is too, I'm not doing this. But guess what he did? And God was true to his word. And look at that. Look at the great nation that the Israelites became out of one man's obedience to follow the voice of God. Right? Now, recently in my life, I experienced a victory because I obeyed the nudging of the voice of God. Crazy, eh? I was at a very low financial point in my life. I had no money at all. It was very bad. It was so bad that one of my accounts had only cents in it, and the other one was in negative. No, I felt God telling me to call one of my particular friends, but I was ignoring it. I was saying, I don't want to call and ask anybody. I'm not going to call her and ask her for it. Maybe I was being prideful, who to tell, but I just didn't feel like calling. And the feeling wouldn't leave me. I kept feeling the nudge. Call her. And guess what I did? I called another friend. When I called the other friend, she didn't pick up. And I laughed and I said, God, here goes you and your sense of humor. But God, in his mercies, knowing who I am and knowing my heart, in his mercy and his sense of humor, he didn't allow that friend to pick up, and he kept nudging me to call the friend that he had said in the first instance. I called her, and when I called her, we were having a little conversation. I was beating around the bush and, trying not to say anything to her. Then the conversation went on, and she told me about a movie that just came out. And I was like, yes, this is a perfect opportunity now, God, open up the door for me to say something to her. So I said, do you want to sponsor me for that movie? And she was like, of course. She said, closed mouth don't get fed. It's as if she was there waiting on me to say something to help to nudge her and to confirm that, yes, she is to bless me. And she did. She blessed me with enough money to see the movie, to buy food, clear my negative balance, and I had change. Tell me about God. Talk to me about God. And I laughed and I rejoiced and was like, God, you are so amazing. I was there being anxious, running away from God's instruction. But after I surrendered and I obeyed, He cleared the way to bless me. Even the response that my friend gave me, it was a confirmation to say He had already prepared her heart to bless me. Now remember, God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. He knows all things. He knows the end from the beginning. So when He gives us an instruction, when He gives us an instruction, it's not like He doesn't know what the outcome of our obedience is going to be, right? So we need to just obey Him. Remember, wherever He sends us, He has already prepared the way. He has made provision. He has prepared the heart of the persons that He might be sending you to talk to. He's already prepared. All you need to do is to make yourself available and obey what He is asking you to do. Right? Obedience, again, is not just about you and I. It's about God doing something greater through us, right? Now, even if you look at the instance with me and my friend, maybe she was hearing God's voice, but she wasn't sure. She was questioning it. So when I said it to her now, it was like confirmation to say, yes, God was really asking her to bless me, right? So some of the times when God, not just to say something to someone, to do something, you don't know that you are an answer to somebody else's prayer, right? So it's not just about you and I. Remember, we are called to be instruments, vessels in His hands, right? No, we don't need to be myopic with this obedience thing, right? All we need to do is to obey what God is calling you to do. Obey Him. God is a just God. He is fair. He is just. So whatever you do for Him, He will reward you. And we can see that in the Bible, right? If we look back at the story of Noah that we just spoke about, in the story of Noah, through his obedience, he ended up saving his family. Think about it, he would have died, but he saved himself and his entire family. Through Abraham, he got his promised son through his wife that was already past the childbearing age. She could not have children, but through God's word and His promise, she ended up with a son. And more than one children, but she ended up with that promised son, Isaac, that through her lineage, we have a great nation. Right? Imagine that, a great nation, because he decided to be obedient to the voice of God and His instruction. Now, sometimes fear or anxiety can cause you to disobey God. But remember, fear and anxiety is not from God. If we go to His word in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, He states that He has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Philippians 4:6 tells us that we should be anxious for nothing, But in everything we should pray and give him thanks. He has already given you the power over your enemy and power over your situation. He has equipped you with the right words to say and given you the strategy that is needed to accomplish what he's calling you to do. He has already made the necessary provisions that you will need. Abraham didn't have to wander around to find the place that God was sending him. God sent him straight to the land he had prepared for him. When he was asked to sacrifice Isaac, he didn't have to go search for another sacrifice. There was a ram that was prepared and caught in the bushes for him to use. In my situation with my friend just recently, I didn't have to convince my friend to send me the money to help me or to help her to figure out where to get it from. God already made provision. All she did was to be God's hands and feet in that particular situation. All you need to do is to obey his instruction, and it will just unfold before you, because remember, he knows the end from the beginning. He knows everything. So when he tells you to do something, just obey and do it, and watch him work it out and blow your mind. Now, if we go back to the story of Saul and Samuel, when Saul offered the sacrifice, God told him that God required his obedience more than the sacrifice, because obedience is better than sacrifice. He went on in the verse to say that rebellion is as a sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. This is how bad God sees disobedience. He says disobedience, stubbornness, and rebellion, those things are very bad in the eyes of God. So you see, the next time that God gives you an instruction and you choose not to do it, think about how bad God sees your disobedience. And I pray that through this revelation, it will help you to obey him. Just obey him. Just obey him. God rejected Saul because of his disobedience, and he lost the throne. Imagine that. Now, if you think about it, what are some opportunities that you might have or is currently missing because you refuse to obey God's instructions? And yes, you might say you're under grace, but even under grace, we are still required to be obedient. That's what sets us apart. That's what sets the children of God apart from everybody else. Right? You are called to do specific things. Pray, fast, love your neighbor as yourself. There's certain things you're required to do. Love your enemy. Pray for them. Do good, and all of that. You're required to do those things. And you might say, yes, you're under grace, but still, obedience is required of you. Jesus himself said it. And you could read John 15:14, John 14:15, and Luke 11:28, just to name a few, where Jesus is, because of Jesus, we're now under grace because he was the ultimate sacrifice. But still, he said it, that we should hear and obey the commands or the words of God. So yes, under grace, as children of God, you are still required to obey his voice, his instructions, right? Obedience benefits you. It benefits you. Imagine when you obey whatever God is telling you to do. You don't walk around wondering, what am I to do? What am I called to do? What is my purpose? And God is telling you to do this or to do something and you're not doing it. You will live a purpose-driven, fulfilled life when you obey God. When you know your calling and God say to go, do it. You will feel fulfilled. You will have peace when you obey God. Now, what is it that God is asking you to do? Is he asking you to start a business? To call the friend? Or even to cut ties with somebody? Is he asking you to start a ministry, to start a channel? What is he asking you to do? Don't think about the different reasons. Yes, they may be logical. Yes, they may make sense. But if God is calling you to do something, he has already gone ahead. The provision is already there. The way is clear. So obey him. He will work out the details. You don't need to worry about that. All you need to do is to obey him. Right? So even me, my testimony, me even doing this channel is in obedience to God. And yes, I was questioning it and I'm thinking, God, there's so many channels out there, so many people talking about God and all of that. But I have chosen to obey God. I have chosen to listen to him and to say, all right, then God, I trust you. So here I am. Use me. Right? So thank you for listening. And as I walk through this, my journey of obedience, being obedient to God, without even know where he's leading me, I don't know. But guess what? I trust him because he never fails, never fails, never fails. So I have decided that yes, obedience is better than sacrifice. Thank you for watching and see you next time for another session of Let Go, Live, and Trust God.